Republicans have a second wave feminism problem. President Donald Trump does specifically, and we need to have, as they say, a national conversation about it and its ramifications if you want to be seen as credible going forwards. I am Joshua Lisec. This is Daily Persuasion. I am the New York Times bestselling author and co-author, a ghostwriter of 101 nonfiction books now, and a certified hypnotist. Through this unique lens of experiences, I teach you how to better influence the VIPs of your career and your life. Well, a story that is and has been in the news for a minute now is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States in the Trump administration, sort of the runner-up / consolation prize after Matt Gaetz was initially, after he was initially nominated and then withdrew himself. Pam Bondi released an Jeffrey Epstein client list memo, and it is an unmitigated disaster. So for weeks, months, years, Pam Bondi, formerly as the Attorney General of Florida, together with the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, and his assistant, Dan Bongino, the known podcaster, formerly a Secret Service agent, yes, but then podcaster. These are all individuals who have, let's say, raged and agitated, righteously so, about corruption in the highest levels of government and the so-called deep state and those assets that have been protecting them. And of course, we have the Epstein list being a major issue. You might recall that it was the independent journalist and investigator and filmmaker and author, of course, Mike Cernovich, who we call him Cerno around here, by the way. Great guy, great guy. I met him in person. He, like many of the new right, is the same person he is in person as online and in video, which is rare amongst sort of e-celebrities, where you get one person on camera and on social media and on the news, and then you get someone totally different in person. Jack Posobiec, my co-author on books, I've shared this before with other individuals. Cerno, Poso, these guys who they are on stage, on video, in person, behind the scenes, in the chats, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, there are also LARPers who are live action role play. And it seems like Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are some of them. So we have these people who are making headlines with claims like, I have the Epstein client list on my desk. And then as of July 6th, what's the scoop? Oh, there is no Epstein client list. Investigation basically effectively over is the gist of the message. And there are some, I think, worthy and necessary reactions to this. Less than 2 years ago, Kash Patel was ranting about the FBI hiding the Epstein client list. Now he's in charge of the bureau. He says it doesn't exist. Yeah, that's a problem. You know who's back, by the way, on X is Stefan Molyneux, by the way. He was gone for a minute. He says, of course the list cannot be released. Countless people would have mental breakdowns if they were suddenly presented with the reality of the world they live in. An anonymous poster known as @9mm_SMG says, allow me to be an optimist for a second. With the DOJ and FBI saying there's no Epstein client list and no cover-up, everyone can go back to not trusting the FBI. People were getting too cozy, posting pics of the crazy-eyed Indian dude and the podcaster guy. That, of course, is Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Okay, so I mentioned Mary Sue's at the outset. So we have, as the Director of Homeland Security, we have Kristi Noem, who is, let's say, widely known for the Mary Sue stereotype. And of course, what we're seeing from Pam Bondi is, it looks like much the same. And Representative Nancy Mace as well. And this is a widespread, these are just a couple of examples. But these are widespread issues where there is a lot of grandstanding. There's a lot of glitz and glamour and glow-ups for the camera and focus on outfits and hair and makeup and girl boss and stunts and commentary. Stunts like when Nancy Mace was wearing her pajamas right? And saying she had to go vote for the big, beautiful bill. And she lied about where she was posting videos from. And Jack Posobiec famously found where she was actually recording from. And it was not anywhere near where she was saying she was from. She was claiming that she was, or insinuating rather, that she was in danger by posting from a very specific, sketchy, nighttime gas station in a tough neighborhood. Like, she's being all badass. Look at that. She's a boss babe. Look at that in her PJs. And she's not, in fact, there, but she's in fact, like a rural and a safe, totally safe part of town. And so she's got called out by Jack Posobiec. That's the Mary Sue, is my position, me being a woman, is the outcome, is the results. See, generally men are judged by results, judged by outcomes, judged by what we do. There's that saying from Camille Paglia that men are, or rather that women are, but men must become. You've heard that expression before, right? So we expect men to do things. This is why we are so frustrated with Bongino and Patel. Like, you guys have been posting and authoring and New York Times bestselling booking for years about corruption. And then you get into the job and you shrug and you say, what client list? Oh, he did in fact kill himself. There's nothing. Seriously? Seriously? Mega disappointment. Mega disappointment. And at the same time, of course, we have the launch of the America Party in this sort of context after Elon Musk claims that it was Donald Trump who was on the Epstein flight list. Yeah. Okay. Client list. Yeah. Flight logs. Yeah. Okay. Okay. No evidence came out. I think probably the most credible posts on this come, of course, from Mike Cernovich, who sued to have the records unsealed and has been on this issue for more than 7 years now, of the Epstein client list and the corruption within the justice system around that. And of course, they also, Pam Bondi has said that there was no blackmail potential, there were no recordings, there were no nothing, even though Mike Cernovich and others like Posobiec have been exposing the truth for a very long time. And even Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino have been talking about this for years, for years. See, the problem with the Mary Sue phenomenon is, look, I am a woman who has this job. Mission accomplished. I am a woman in this job. And this is why, generally speaking, the public is becoming leery of diversity hires, because it's clear that they're a diversity hire, right? Where the accomplishment is being a certain race or sex in this position. You don't have to actually do things. There's generally significantly lower standards, because your job is to stand there with your hair and your makeup and your plastic surgery and pose for the photo. I am reminded of that one photo of Kristi Noem, formerly a governor, and search my name and hers, by the way, on Google, and you'll find some interesting shenanigans where I've called her out previously on deception and narrative, let's say, bending, and potentially outright lying to look all badass and cool and like she does the hard things when it counts and when it matters, and then lying about the lies, and it's just a disaster. But this is the Mary Sue problem. And if you're not familiar, the Mary Sue is the trope where a woman shows up in a man's role doing a man's job, and she's perfect and never can do anything wrong. And that's the message of Hollywood and all entertainment for the last couple of decades. I have sort of put myself on the map in a little way by writing about the Mary Sue phenomenon. It was back in December 2022 that I wrote a thread/article on then Twitter that racked up about 13 million views, and it was the #1 story on all of social media for the whole weekend back in December 2022. And I appeared in all manner of news and entertainment outlets. And that, by the way, is how I met, officially, Jack Posobiec. And we were working on a book together almost exactly 1 year later. And it was through that. Okay, this Joshua guy, he knows culture. He knows culture. I don't know what to do about the Mary Sue phenomenon, besides talk about it, besides advocate for it, besides say that the emperor has no clothes. I suppose the equivalent might be Nancy Mace has pajamas, or something like that, maybe. We can't solve the problem if we can't talk about it. And this problem continues to be diversity hires that It's as if their job is to have the job and be able to say the prepositional clause as a woman, as an Indian American, as a person of color, and then that's the job. That's why they're here. It's so strange, and I believe that we need to raise our standards. It would not be appropriate. It would not be, let's say, it would not be inappropriate, which is to say, it would be appropriate for Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino to resign, all three of them effective immediately. That would be appropriate. By the way, the same week/weekend that actually there is no Epstein client list. Yeah, and there was no blackmail ever. And yeah, he totally did kill himself. And there's not any other crimes we can prosecute or investigate here. Whoops, sorry. That very same weekend, the White House seemed to confirm their agreement with the official narrative from the FBI going back to the Biden administration that Butler, Pennsylvania would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks, he acted entirely, completely, and totally alone. That was the official narrative from the Biden administration. And the White House, but Donald Trump specifically, said something to the effect of that if this is what my people are saying at the FBI, I believe them. Something to that effect. Whereas previously he had expressed skepticism in the official story, as had a number of people in the administration. And we always expected that there might be a little bit of a bait and switch with sort of the promises made and the promises that are actually kept, because that's politics. And you might know that Jack Posobiec and I wrote this book together, Bulletproof, which is the first and only book covering the known and unknowns of the attempted assassination attempts on Donald J. Trump, both in Butler, Pennsylvania, and in West Palm Beach, Florida. And the president himself endorsed the book, most famously, right before the election, when it mattered. Of course, it still matters. We realize that our book is more complete than the final investigative reports, rather, published by the House and Senate committees on the matter. We saw the official reports, wrapped this thing up. Everything we found, we put in this report. And a couple of guys from the Midwestern United States put together and published a more comprehensive work in 3.5 weeks than the entire federal government was capable of. I don't know what else to tell you. We have more than the Mary Sue problem. All this to say, and in the context of Elon Musk defecting and deciding he's going to start a third party to be a centrist position, what exactly is in the center between we should have infinity illegal immigrants so we can dilute the voter population, increase the census in our favor so we can have a permanently neo-Marxist socialist paradise where, okay, that's the left-wing position, and then the right-wing position is simply follow the law. DEI means deport every illegal. Okay, what is the centrist position exactly? You know that expression compromise that comes from the book Never Split the Difference? I wanted to wear my black shoes. My wife said I should wear the brown shoes, so we compromised, and I'm wearing one black shoe and one brown shoe. That's the America Party. Okay? The most, let's say, emotionally charged pieces of content Elon Musk has published in the last, let's say, 6 to 7 months, but specifically post-inauguration. So this is following the ascendancy to the presidency of Donald J. Trump. The three most emotionally, let's say, charged, even vitriolic, I might add, posts. One of them comes right after Christmas, but right before the inauguration, when Trump is going to be the president. He's the president-elect at that time. Elon Musk famously dropped an F-bomb with regard to resistance to H-1B visas and his over-reliance on them. And what, of course, H-1Bs are where you get, let's say, foreign laborers and you hire them overseas or in the States. You bring them over here and they have a sort of a work visa, and you can pay them significantly less for significantly more hours worked. And they're sort of an indentured servant / immigrant because they can't quit unless they have found another employer to sponsor their visa, their work visa, or else they go back. So it's the creation of a permanent indentured servitude class. And if they're here and we have birthright citizenship, well, what happens? Well, the H-1B, if they get a girlfriend or they do the green card marriage type deal, they have a child here. Guess what? Now their kid's a legal citizen, which of course makes no sense. Birthright citizenship existed for the founding fathers generation, where individuals were able to hold office if they had been born in a British colony that was considered British and not yet American, because the Declaration of Independence had not yet been written. The United States as a country had not existed yet. And the argument for modern birthright citizenship of illegals crossing the border, in some cases, many cases, pregnant even, and then having free healthcare paid for by us taxpayers, having the baby in a hospital, and now they have the anchor baby. Okay. Even Vivek Ramaswamy, famously an anchor baby. Okay. I like to call them H-1B Americans. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, of course, are ideological brothers in this regard. And their belief that something like foreign labor, immigrant labor is superior because they want it more and they're like more desperate. So they'll work for fewer, less pay, work more hours. Okay. The H-1B system is abusive to everyone, except of course to the employer who can get away with indentured servitude or sort of modern indentured servitude. It's just not acceptable. Not acceptable. All of this said in the context of Epstein and Musk and the America Party and all this Mary Sue nonsense, the two most important issues for the right are the economy and immigration in inverse order of priority to highest priority. Number one issue is immigration. Number two issue is the economy. If you solve immigration, meaning stay on track, they all go back, you will solve a number of economic problems like housing costs, like the fertility rate, family formation, crime and poverty even, which of course are closely related. I mentioned the three most vitriolic posts of Musk. One was the F-bombed defense of H-1Bs. The other was his attack on the president, Donald J. Trump, personally over the Epstein list, claiming that he was on that. Like, really? So you're wanting us to believe that you worked with this guy and had your own children, young children, around Trump, and he was on the Epstein list, and you knew that, and you said nothing until now? Really? It's evident that he is one of the smartest men in the world, Elon Musk. But smarts do not equate to wisdom. Sad to say. Now, he has suffered more than many have in the case of his support for Donald J. Trump. We also know, of course, and he admitted himself, that if Kamala Harris won, he would be losing his companies and going to jail. So there's a significant self-interest in that. And he only endorsed the president after the assassination attempt in Butler. See, it all comes back around to the third post of Musk's, which is his repeated attacks on Steve Bannon. Now, I have met Steve and had a number of private conversations with him in person. He is known to not be a fan of the technocrats. At the Passage Press coronation ball on January 19th, he gave the keynote address, Steve Bannon did, and he called for the arrest and imprisonment of Mark Zuckerberg, and the room goes wild, both with shock and awe and joy and terror. It was hilarious. There was a plant from, I don't remember which newspaper that was there, but that was quite funny. And they wrote about this, so it's publicly known that that's what he said. But Musk has been attacking Steve Bannon over and over and over again, wishing him something close to death wishes and permanent, like basically life in prison, effectively. Of course, like Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon was one of the people, and together with the January 6th political prisoners, who actually were political prisoners, politically prosecuted by the Biden administration in order to punish them for their support of Donald J. Trump. Okay. So Merrick Garland, by the way, Merrick Garland under Biden, he committed the exact same crime, faced no jail time, that Steve Bannon did, who spent 4 months in prison during the summer and early fall, basically, the election season, to take him off the board. Politically motivated, obviously, and strategic, and smart, clever, from the left's perspective, but the right would just not do the same. We're busy over here with our diversity hires. Second wave feminism is that women can do and should do any job that a man can. And women are even better at it because they're women. They just have to be, but men have to become. Like, the accomplishment for the woman is having the job. So this is a problem. This is a problem. I'm not familiar with what Tulsi Gabbard has been up to over there as Director of National Intelligence. I can't speak to that. Susie Wiles, President's Chief of Staff, does seem to be relatively capable and competent, but nevertheless, we have a Mary Sue problem. We have an H-1B problem. Despite everything, the one call to action, the most important issue, stay on track, they all go back. And in your own life, where there are issues that come up, there are arguments, there are complexities, focus on the one most important thing, that if you accomplish that, all other problems become blips. And if you don't accomplish that one thing, but accomplish everything else, you still have a big problem. In your relationships, in your work, in your business, in your clientele, what is the number one most important thing? What is your stay on track? They all go back. That's what I want you to take away from today. That's Daily Persuasion.